My fiancée is a crazy fangirl, all just to meet the popular idol Makoto. She even chartered a plane to support him. She chased him all around the country. The most ridiculous part? Makoto even came up to me, shouting, asking what kind of thing I, her fiancé, was supposed to be. What am I? I'm your dad. Chapter 1. It had been half a month since I last saw my fiancée, and endless gossip kept drifting into my ears. Even while waiting by the roadside for a car, I could hear people praising her insane fangirl exploits. Someone said, "Did you hear? Some crazy fan actually chartered a whole plane to cheer for her idol not long ago." Another replied, "You're late to the news." That was the Liu family's daughter, arguing with her boyfriend. She did it out of spite. The first one sighed, "Oh man, this world has gone completely insane. I can't even understand it anymore." It felt like an invisible hand had swung down from the sky and slapped me hard across the face. I shut my eyes briefly, suppressing the anger in my chest. The driver finally pulled up. Seeing my expression, he broke out in a cold sweat. I had no mind to blame him for being late. My thoughts were entirely on Willow. Today Luis had organized a gathering, inviting everyone from our circle. In the group chat, he had sternly reminded us several times that everyone must show up. Willow didn't reply, but she hadn't refused either. I straightened my expression and entered the hotel, though I was deeply displeased. This matter would have to wait until after the dinner. Willow might be shameless, but I still cared a lot about saving face. When I reached the private room door, Maria's shrill voice came through. She said, "He's an actor. He has to fly around from set to set, and Willow keeps chasing after him. I heard he recently had a fallout with a brand over endorsement fees, and Willow begged several companies to work with him. She even had a huge fight with her grandfather because of him, and even said she wouldn't care if she were kicked out of the family." I pretended not to hear, pushed the door open with a blank expression. Seeing me come in, Maria immediately shut her mouth. She pressed her lips together and said, "George." I gave a small nod as a greeting. Tonight's gathering was a small one among insiders. The private room only had 8 chairs. Luis, the one who organized it, and Maria, who had just been gossiping, were already seated. 4 others were lounging on the sofa playing cards. The only one missing was Willow. I had barely exchanged a few words with Luis when Willow pushed the door open and came in. Half a month without seeing her, and yet Willow still carried that same air of aloof elegance when facing me. She sat down beside me, gracefully helping me rinse the cups and plates. It was a far cry from the image Maria had painted of her, recklessly chasing after idols without caring about anything else. I cast her a glance, and some of my anger eased, but I hadn't expected that halfway through the meal, there was a knock at the private room door. A man dressed in a teddy bear costume walked in. His clumsy steps were almost comical. Beneath the oversized costume head, he held a large bouquet of fresh flowers tightly in his arms, while in the other hand he clutched a plush labubu, making him especially eye-catching. The moment he appeared, Willow's body stiffened slightly. Her expression instantly shifted into one of surprise, but Maria was the first to speak. "Wow, those flowers are gorgeous, little handsome guy. Are you here to confess to me? But you know, if you want to chase me, don't bother with flowers, just hand me a hotel key card instead." I was speechless. Maria's words always sounded casual, but in truth she had never even had a boyfriend. She simply loved verbal sparring. The man looked flustered, but his eyes never left Willow. In a hoarse voice he said, "Today is our store's anniversary event. We randomly selected a young lady to participate. These are the prizes." Sure enough, Maria immediately fell silent. Luis was already displeased. He had organized this gathering, and now some uninvited stranger had barged in. He pulled out his phone at once, ready to contact the restaurant's manager. Just as the man was about to be left embarrassed, Willow suddenly stood up. She waved her hand and said, "All right, I'll participate." She didn't even spare me a glance before quickly following the man out. The whole thing happened so abruptly that by the time anyone reacted, the private room door had already closed. Silence fell instantly, the atmosphere frozen. Everyone turned their eyes toward me, studying my expression. I slowly picked up my chopsticks, reached for the pork knuckle dish that nobody had touched yet. I said, "This dish is pretty good." The moment I spoke, the tension in the room eased, and people rushed to agree with me. Maria blinked her eyes and said, "It is good. George, you should eat more. If you like it, I can even learn how to make it for you next time." I set down my chopsticks and replied, "The dish is good, but I don't like eating it." The room sank back into that eerie silence. I no longer felt like continuing the meal. Leaving behind just one sentence, "I'm leaving first," I walked out of the private room. Chapter 2. After I dialed Willow, the call was hung up. I stared at the text message she sent me. It read, "Hubby, I've got something urgent." I let out a short laugh. Urgent? Since when does playing cosplay with someone count as an urgent matter? I'd known Willow for 16 years. Calling us childhood sweethearts wouldn't be an exaggeration. After we came of age, Our two families simply went with the flow and arranged the engagement. It was supposed to be a powerful alliance, and Willow had never objected. But now, pulling the stunt of meeting her true love, that was nonsense. I directly called her grandfather and explained the situation, with a bit of exaggeration on my end. Old Master Lou was so furious he started coughing repeatedly. After that day, I hadn't seen Willow for a long while, but I heard she was severely scolded by her grandfather. All the resources she had thrown at that celebrity were completely pulled back, and there was no more news about her and that star. My family was satisfied with this outcome, but I hadn't expected that someone dissatisfied would come directly to me. Every month I host a party, both to strengthen connections and to provide a networking spot. This month it was on a cruise ship. I rarely looked at the invitation list myself. My secretary usually handled it. But who would have thought? This time Willow's lover managed to sneak in. Inside the ship there was a bar. A few close brothers and I were watching scantily dressed girls dancing energetically on stage. The girls were barely in their early 20s. But even in such an environment the starlight in their eyes couldn't be hidden. I was enjoying the show when suddenly a thin man stepped in front of me. He said, "Mr. Wong." The moment I heard that voice, I recognized him. It was the man in the mascot costume from that day. He looked down at me with furrowed brows, his eyes filled with disdain and contempt. I was completely baffled. What the hell? Who the fuck are you? Can't you see you're blocking us? David, with his hot temper, had just been enjoying the show. He nearly kicked the guy aside. The contemptuous voice rang out. The man said, "I am Makoto." David looked at me, as if to ask, "Do you know him?" I shook my head. He glanced around at the others. After confirming that no one recognized him, David suddenly stood up, shoved him hard, and cursed, "What the hell is wrong with you? Get this clown out of here. Security." David hadn't really meant to hurt him. Makoto was only pushed back a bit. But clearly he wasn't one to back down. He swung his arm and actually managed to knock David over. I rubbed my forehead. David wasn't the type to retaliate over every slight, but he definitely bore grudges. This wasn't going to end easily. Sure enough, a few of my buddies beside me stood up, and David directly grabbed a wine bottle. Just as David was about to explode, Makoto sneered and said, "George, if something happens to me on your turf, Willow will hate you for the rest of her life." Makoto's voice was confident and arrogant, absolutely certain of his words. I almost laughed out loud. I couldn't care less whether Willow hated me or not, but I still held David back. If it came to a grudge, it wouldn't be good to drag Willow into open hostility with him. If they wanted to settle scores, better do it after we left the ship. Makoto had clearly come straight at me. After persuading David and the others to back off, I finally faced him directly. He stood there, half a head shorter than me, thin, with delicate features. Hard to imagine Willow like this type. "Must be the fan filter at work," he said. "Willow doesn't like you." I smiled. And then, as if he hadn't expected my reaction, Makoto froze. Then, righteously, he said, "It's all because of you." Willow was scolded by her grandfather. She was so upset, she suffered because of you. And yet you act like nothing happened. I locked eyes with him and said each word clearly. All of this is only Willow's own fault for being so cheap, cheating and throwing herself at someone. We're all adults, and adults must pay the price for their choices. Chapter 3. The word cheating struck Makoto right in the heart. His expression changed instantly, and he reacted strongly. "You and Willow are only a business engagement. Willow isn't cheating." I chuckled. "By your logic, business engagements don't count as cheating. Then you must be brainless to talk without thinking. Let me give you some advice. Don't make yourself too pathetic. Losing your teeth and living off a woman is one thing, but if you're acting like a dog, all you'll ever get are leftovers." Makoto's face flushed red and pale in turns, his chest rising and falling violently. I leaned back lazily on the sofa, no longer looking at him, my eyes drifting past him to the girl still dancing on stage. Through clenched teeth, Makoto said, "I'm already a famous actor, earning a six-figure monthly income on my own. I work harder than you. I'm more capable than you. I'm better than you in every way. You're just lucky to be born into the right family. You spend your days as a spoiled playboy, wasting time on wine and women. Only I am worthy of Willow." Looking at his indignant face, I laughed aloud. "You are pretty good, but in City A, gold is everywhere. You're gold, but so is that girl." I nodded toward the glittering girl on stage. "And me, I'm not gold. I'm the one who owns the gold mine." I ignored the ugly look on his face and went on. "No need to play the fake hero for her in front of me. If you really want to stand up for her, why don't you go public? Announce it. Say that a business engagement isn't cheating, and that you two are true love." I sneered. "What's the matter? Why so quiet? Don't dare to. Afraid of losing everything you have now? Then it seems you're very clear about your own position. To be blunt, you've just had a few brushes with high society and you want to stay here, but you picked the wrong person. Your so-called abilities and your feelings for Willow are worthless to me. Power and money aren't transmitted like HIV through sex. and social class is an unbridgeable gap. The only reason you can stand here today is thanks to Willow. If Willow weren't my fiancée, you wouldn't even have the right to speak to me." Makoto's face turned deathly pale. His lips pressed into a thin line, full of stubbornness and fury. I rarely said words this cruel, but today I was too fed up to show mercy. Willow couldn't see reality, and had repeatedly humiliated me enough to make me furious. And now she even let someone come flaunting in my face, eat rice at the table, then chase true love after putting the bowl down. I stood up, brushed off imaginary dust from my clothes. "Ito-san, that car with the license plate of 5/8, the privileges that came with it, you enjoyed them, right? Did Willow not tell you? That was the engagement gift from my family." My words completely shattered the arrogant confidence Makoto had built for himself. The matter of him and Willow had stirred up the entire city. They drove that Bentley with the 5/8 plate all around City A, appearing on every major street. The heiress of City A's top family, spending a fortune to buy a luxury car for her idol just to fulfill her fangirl dream. Even outsiders were guessing she might sever ties with her family for him, but I knew she wouldn't. She didn't have the ability. I walked out to the deck. Even though I had hosted countless banquets like this, my appearances in front of everyone were extremely rare. Usually I stayed in the cabin with a few friends, or napped alone on that exclusive bed. The point of these gatherings wasn't the games. Even in my own place, getting me to show up in person was rare. I stopped in front of the first mate leaning on the railing. I said, "Stop the ship." The first mate looked confused, clearly not understanding. I said, "Turn back." After those words, I turned and went back to the cabin. The eyes of rich heirs and socialites all followed me. I could have just sent the captain a message instead of appearing personally, but I did it this way to show everyone my stance. My fiancée's lover had openly provoked me. Could I still keep hosting the banquet? What face would the Wang family have left then? The next morning, the maid knocked on my door and said the Liu family had come. She added at the end that Madam said young Master Wang could come down when convenient. No need to hurry. I simply lay back down and went back to sleep. Chapter 4. By the time I went downstairs, it was already noon. There was a woman sitting on the sofa. I narrowed my eyes. Not Willow. It was Willow's younger sister, Freya Liu, the Liu family's illegitimate daughter. Seeing me come down, Freya quickly stood up. She bit her lip and said, "Mr. Wang." Willow had something to attend to, so she left first. I didn't show any impatience. Sitting down on the sofa, I only nodded. When I didn't respond further, Freya leaned in, almost affectionately, and said, "My sister is really something." Apparently one of her friends asked her out to eat, and she rushed off without a second thought. "Please, Mr. Wang, don't be angry with her." I smiled faintly and diverted the topic. "Since Miss Liu has waited so long, why not stay for lunch?" Hearing that, Freya Liu quickly nodded. I stood up and instructed the servant beside me, "Ask Miss Liu about her preferences and take her to eat. As for me, I still have matters to attend to. Miss Liu, please make yourself at home." With a slight nod, I walked past Freya. Her face must have looked awful, but I didn't care. In this so-called strong alliance, Willow Liu and the Liu family were already out of the game. There were only a handful of top families in City A. When the engagement was set, Willow had been the best choice. The Liu family's foundation was solid, and their upbringing impeccable. But just half a year after we sealed the engagement, the Liu family recognized an illegitimate son, Martin, older than Willow, and also a younger illegitimate daughter, Freya. The Liu couple's marriage collapsed. Family scandals spread, and as the legitimate daughter of the main branch, Willow's standing in her family became precarious. At that point, Willow was no longer the best option. But my family never considered breaking off the engagement. Until today, Willow left, leaving Freya behind. She knew I would never take interest in Freya. In her desperation, she left Freya as a kind of explanation, but I didn't accept that. Neither did my parents or my sister. While I was having afternoon tea, news of the Wang and Liu families breaking off the engagement had already spread across the internet. I didn't need to act. My parents were highly efficient. The news articles ran long, stating officially that even though the engagement was cancelled, the Wang and Liu families would remain partners, while discreetly hinting at the reasons for the broken marriage. In no time, gossip news dug every last detail about Willow and Makoto. Some cursed them, but more praised their love. I showed my buddies one headline: "The Liu family heiress charters a plane to support Makoto. Funding her idol is exactly what a true heroine should do." I said, "If I'm not mistaken, wasn't she my fiancée? A cheating woman can be called a heroine now." My friend shrugged. "In the end, taking sides outweighs right and wrong." He added, "How does that saying go? Never take part in any crusade against women." Guess this is what they mean. A laughable stance of public opinion over right and wrong. And the protagonist of that news proved it further. They appeared openly in my home. Willow had lost quite a bit of weight, and Makoto stood right in front of her. It was Willow's mother who had brought them. I raised a brow. What now? My mother sat with a teacup in hand, her expression dark. Willow's mother, however, was all smiles. I forgot to mention, my relationship with Willow's mother was terrible, for no special reason other than that I never bought into her manipulative nonsense, especially after her family scandal was exposed. Her hostility toward me only grew. She laughed and said, "George, it's been such a long time. Back then you were still a young boy, but now you've really grown into quite a capable man." She paused, then continued, "But, if only you could be a bit more mature, more generous, more giving, you'd be even more likable to girls. Don't you agree, Makoto? More likable to girls?" My face instantly darkened, and it took all my self-control to keep from exploding on the spot. The next second, my mother slammed her teacup heavily onto the coffee table. The jade cup couldn't withstand the blow and shattered instantly. "Mother." Willow's disapproving voice rang out. Chapter 5. When Willow's mother was young, she had been a movie star. Perhaps the Liu family carried some kind of love brain gene, because Willow's father had gone against his family's opposition and married her. But as it turned out, not long after the wedding, Willow's father found a mistress and brought back 2 illegitimate children. Maybe because the love of her youth had burned too brightly, Willow's mother could never accept this betrayal. For those who live solely on love, once love is gone, they are left with nothing. Her whole temperament changed. She acted as if the whole world owed her something, unable to bear seeing others living happily. And since my family was indeed very happy, whenever people mentioned the alliance between the Wang and Liu families, someone would inevitably compare my mother to her. Willow's mother had been stewing with resentment for a long time. Makoto, as if completely blind to the mood, chimed in, "Auntie is right. A man should have some breadth of mind." Bang. Before he could finish, my mother hurled the teapot to the floor near his feet. Hot water and tea leaves exploded together with the shards, splattering by Makoto's shoes. She scolded, "And what the hell are you? You think you have the right to pass judgment in my house?" The living room fell silent. From upstairs came the sound of a door opening. A moment later, my sister appeared at the second-floor railing, quietly watching the scene below without speaking. The atmosphere was unbearably tense. Makoto, startled, dared not speak. Willow closed her eyes briefly. Willow's mother, indirectly targeted by my mother's words, turned red and pale by turns. Willow bit her lip and said, "Auntie, I came today to apologize. This was my fault. You watched me grow up, and I always treated George like an older brother." Even in such a situation, Willow managed to keep her tone calm. But as soon as she finished, mocking laughter came from upstairs. My sister said, "Our family isn't lacking for a so-called little sister." "What? You want the Wang family to be your crutch?" "Willow, if you're apologizing, then show some sincerity." Willow raised her eyes upward. Her gaze clouded. She gave a cold snort and said, "The joint Wang-Lu digital product launch will be postponed for half a month." I studied her without speaking. Willow kept her eyes on my sister, but I could feel my sister's gaze resting on me the whole time. When I didn't respond, after a moment my sister spoke slowly, "Not enough." The living room fell silent for a long time. Just as I was beginning to grow impatient, Willow finally spoke again. "At the end of the month, Liu Corporation will withdraw from the project." I raised a brow and gave a faint smile. "The Liu family is really willing, aren't they?" Before she could reply, I leaned back and looked at this shameless woman. "Since your mother brought you here to apologize, then get on with it. Don't waste my time." Willow stood up, and Willow's mother followed unwillingly. But Makoto wasn't having it. He ground his teeth and shouted, "George, don't push it too far. Willow has already made such huge concessions." I looked at him with amusement. "If you don't like it, you're free to leave." Willow tugged at Makoto's sleeve. "Makoto, don't say anything more." Makoto sighed and stood up. Willow stood before me, with her mother and Makoto behind her. Watching them bow their heads and apologize to me, it was laughable. I had underestimated Makoto, overestimated Willow, and underestimated the sheer force of being love-struck. She must really think that giving up some benefits and offering a shallow apology would make this all go away. If love is so important to them, then losing something shouldn't matter, right? As Willow's family left, Makoto was the last to go. He glared at me with furious eyes and declared that he would remember today's humiliation. I shrugged. "Go ahead. If you can remember it for a lifetime, that just means you've got a good memory." Chapter 6. Willow and I came to an agreement. The Wang family would no longer make things difficult for her, and she could focus on her internal struggle with those illegitimate siblings. But even without my interference, without the Wang family's support, she had no real advantage against an illegitimate child. I heard that the broken engagement completely shattered old Master Lu's faith in her. Understandable, idle chasing. Calling off an engagement, Northwest matter how close. No one could endure endless humiliation and disgrace. Makoto was riding high, basking in the spotlight. Everyone in the circle knew he was about to marry the Liu family heiress, Willow. And me, I had become the clown. Of course, no one dared show it in front of me, but this was the first time in years that anyone could laugh at my expense. Makoto deliberately avoided me, but who knew David would end up inviting both of us to the same party. Today, David said he had invited that dancing girl from before. I was still a little interested in those starlit eyes, but as soon as I arrived, I saw Makoto in a suit. He was surrounded by people, clearly the center of attention, laughing so hard he couldn't even close his mouth. I was debating whether to leave when a hand landed on my shoulder. David leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Bro, tonight I'll get revenge for you." I frowned. "Don't." But before I could finish, David had already grabbed a bottle of champagne. He shook it hard with his thumb on the cork and aimed it at Makoto. He shouted, "Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're honored to have the male lead of Airplane Gate, Makoto Ito, gracing us with his presence. Let's all welcome him." David's voice drew everyone's attention. Under the dim bar lights, Makoto's face visibly darkened. No one cheered, only David. The rest whispered among themselves. David shrugged. "Since no one else wants to welcome Mr. Ito, I'll do it myself." With a sly grin, he popped the champagne cork with a loud bang. At the same instant, Makoto let out a miserable scream. The champagne sprayed straight into his face. By the time the bottle was empty, Makoto's hair and suit were soaked, leaving him in utter disgrace. David laughed. "What are you all waiting for? Clap." Stifling their laughter, the onlookers applauded. This had nothing to do with me. David had dragged me into it on purpose. Without hesitation, I turned to leave, but I had only taken 2 steps when gasps rang out behind me. The shattering of a glass bottle and the stench of blood filled the air. As the body was about to collapse, I rushed forward and caught her. Looking down, I saw those eyes filled with starlight. The owner of those eyes curved her lips, revealing delicate dimples. When I carried her into the car, I couldn't understand Makoto's twisted thinking. David had humiliated him, so why target me for revenge? If Anna hadn't rushed forward at that moment, the one with a shattered skull would have been me. And the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Did Makoto even realize what kind of price he would have to pay if he cracked my head open? While Anna went into surgery for stitches, I sat down in the waiting area. My parents and David's older brother all arrived. My mother checked me from head to toe, while David's brother finally breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't have to inform them, something this big. Of course they knew immediately. David's brother came to apologize. Even though I wasn't hurt, it had all started because of David. As for the culprit, Makoto was sent to the police station along with David. For people like us, incidents were usually settled privately. Rarely did anyone actually get hauled into the station. I heard from my mother that Willow went to find Makoto. Even someone as hopelessly love-struck as her scolded him this time. For the Liu family, with their mistress scheming to climb into power, this scandal couldn't have come at a worse time. But Anna refused to settle privately. She insisted on pressing charges against Makoto. That was my stance as well. From start to finish, I didn't show my face again. That very day, I took Anna, stitches fresh in her head, and flew straight to Qatar. She had taken the blow meant for me. At the very least, I owed it to her to make sure she healed properly. Chapter 7. By the time I returned to the country, a month had already passed. Coincidentally, I ran into Willow and Makoto at the airport. I suddenly felt as if they were haunting me like restless ghosts. City A was such a big place, and yet here we were coincidentally bumping into each other. It looked like they were there to pick someone up. Willow's eyes fell on Anna, who was holding my arm. I glanced at Willow. If you stripped away the aura of wealth propping her up, Anna was in no way inferior to her. In fact, Anna was younger, with a better figure. Makoto looked at me like I had killed his father, fury bursting in his eyes. He wanted to lunge at me but let Willow hold him back, almost as if on purpose. Through clenched teeth, he spat, "George, you despicable coward. So what if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth? You're nothing but useless trash. If you've got guts, face me head on. But no, you just hide behind others, pulling strings, scheming in the shadows. What kind of ability is that?" He went on. "You really think you're that great? What's there to brag about? Willow already told me everything. She always treated you as nothing more than a tool. Never once thought of actually marrying you, even if she had to go through with the engagement. She planned to have children with me and make you raise them." Willow's face flushed bright red. The idol she once worshipped now acted like a clown, flailing and shouting. It seemed her rose-colored filter was finally shattering. I laughed lightly. "Makoto, when you hold a position, you shoulder its responsibilities. Not everyone is as shameless as Willow, living off others and still daring to curse the hand that feeds. And if you two actually had a brain between you, you'd ask yourselves, am I really the tool, or is she the Liu family's engagement tool? Remember this, Makoto, I only talk business, never feelings. So here's a piece of advice, a simp ends up with nothing in the end. You. Makoto choked on his words, while Willow kept her lips pressed tightly shut. I knew Makoto would never believe me. Love. More than power. Intoxicates people, but once passion fades, how many can truly keep their original devotion? Right now he was only out on bail, reporting to the police station every single day. I ignored them and walked toward the exit. As I passed Willow, I heard her call out to me, "George, have you been doing well lately?" My steps halted. Even if we hadn't seen each other for half a year before, Willow had never once asked me how I was doing. I turned my head slightly, looked at her face, and spat out the words slowly, "Go fuck yourself." Then I dragged Anna, tense as if facing enemies, away with me. Behind us, Makoto's furious roar echoed through the terminal. Slutty women really couldn't stop debasing themselves. Originally, Anna and I had planned to stay longer in Qatar, but my sister said the Liu family's internal war was reaching a fever pitch, and that my return now would add fuel to the fire at just the right moment. My people had been monitoring every move within the Liu family. Now Willow had the support of Old Master Liu and some of the branch families. Meanwhile, Martin and Freya had Liu father behind them. They had already resorted to bribery and all sorts of shady tactics, and somehow maintained a fragile balance of power. If I threw in some fuel now, the blaze would grow even hotter. At Chihang, I'd always held the title of president. Over the years, the company had developed decently, but it was still far from the level of top-tier corporations. Still, I was willing to wager everything Chihang had. I threw my support behind Martin and Freya. The day the news was released, the house phone didn't stop ringing. The Wang and Liu families were both industry giants. Other companies were all probing, wondering if the Wang family had switched sides and started backing someone else. My parents had already gone abroad, so the phone at home was only answered by the servants. I heard Willow went to see my sister. Less than half an hour later, she came out looking grim. I could easily guess what they talked about. My sister probably just deflected, making it unclear what I really intended. Plenty of people had long wanted to meddle in the Liu family's internal war, but none dared to pick a side, choose wrong, and retaliation would cost them dearly. By firing the first shot, I became the early bird, and suddenly countless companies rushed in to pile on support. The Liu family descended into even greater chaos. Old Master Liu wanted to end the civil war, but the arrow was already knocked on the bow. It could not be pulled back. Everyone knew Martin was greedy, lustful, and useless, while Freya was short-sighted, constantly making blunders. But no one was naive enough to actually want the Liu Corporation to thrive. After half a month of infighting, the illegitimate siblings already showed momentum of overshadowing Willow. When the timing felt right, I released the news that Makoto had smashed a bottle and injured Anna. Anna was a top star, with a massive and fanatical fan base. Coupled with the recent hype about Makoto and Willow's so-called love story, the internet exploded within half an hour, digging up everything about them. Online, waves of scolding flooded in. Before the PR team even reacted, Liu Corporation's stock price had already plunged. Anna's fan power was even stronger than I had imagined. As I looked at the news of Willow and Makoto being pushed to the top of trending searches by angry fans, the beauty in my arms pouted and complained. "Gio, you can't just use me like that without giving me something in return. I expect payment." Anna was like a seductive fox spirit. Her temple tattoo used to cover a scar, only making her look more sensual. In those eyes I loved most, there was nothing but dependence and adoration, though who knew how much of it was real? But I didn't care. Chapter 8. Rubbing my sore waist, I let out a sigh. Youth really was something enviable. I secured 2 lead roles for Anna, and her happiness made me happy too. Anna was a clever woman. She never once claimed the identity of my girlfriend. Aside from being a bit wild when playing around, I was more than satisfied with her. Willow's reputation had collapsed because of Makoto, and she was further pressured step by step by the illegitimate siblings. Under the weight of public opinion, even Old Master Liu had no choice but to abandon Willow. Martin became the heir. As soon as Martin took the seat, Freya immediately began clearing out the remnants of Willow's faction. It was a risky move, but for long-term survival, it had to be done. Yes, that was my idea. For a while, the Liu Corporation was full of resentment. Many veteran executives were driven out in the most humiliating of ways. Old Master Liu fell ill with rage. Martin and Freya, suddenly intoxicated with overwhelming power, behaved as if they now held the world in their hands. Half of Liu Corporation's senior management was purged. But the higher you climb, the harder the fall. Their arrogance wouldn't last long. Days of indulgence and debauchery followed. Martin was reported for fooling around in the office, while Freya was accused of embezzlement. Both were taken in for investigation. I nearly choked on my water when I heard the news. What useless trash that couldn't be propped up no matter how much effort you wasted. My sister quickly handed me tissues and said, "Willow has already lost. George, it's time to stop." I curled my lips into a smile. "Sis, the game has only just begun." She froze, such a calm woman. Yet at this moment she looked so shocked it was almost funny. Blinking, she asked, "You're serious?" She thought I was only getting revenge on Willow. No one truly knew my intentions. My sister knew I had ambition, but never imagined I'd go so far as to drag the Liu family down entirely. Stretching lazily, I laughed. You've underestimated me, sis. From beginning to end, I never wanted to marry Willow, but some things couldn't be decided simply by my unwillingness. The engagement with her had been about maximizing benefits, but whether I could kick the Liu family out was another matter. Chi-Han took the lead in defecting. All the dirt we had collected on Liu Corporation exploded online like it was free of charge. Old Master Liu fell into a coma. Willow's father was useless, and they had no choice but to drag Willow back to salvage the situation. But with the upper ranks full of Martin and Freya's people, Willow was shackled at every step, unable to make waves. Within 3 days, Liu Corporation's stock hit its limit down each day. During those 3 days, Willow and her father didn't sleep, struggling to save the company. Futile. In the end, they cut off half their operations in order to survive. Though badly weakened, Liu Corporation managed to hold on, but everyone knew the Liu family would never recover. In business, there are no friends, only interests. Now Liu Corporation was just a piece of fat meat, waiting to be carved up, and I was the one who ate the largest piece. On the day I seized Liu Corporation's core project, my father held a company-wide celebration in my honor. The entire company shut down, and tens of thousands cheered for me. Since the founding of the Wang family enterprise, only I had ever received such an honor. A person may live for only a handful of true moments, but my moment would never be standing in a church, saying "I do" under the gaze of a priest. After the celebration, my father gave me a Rolls-Royce. I had several luxury cars in my garage already, but this one was different. It was a black Rolls-Royce, with City A's 58 license plate. What can I say? A good car should be driven by me. Good things should be kept for my own enjoyment. I don't need any so-called powerful alliance. I alone am enough. I love power, and I love money, but even more, I love success. That feeling of standing high above, ruling over everyone, that is what intoxicates me. People like us would never be entangled in petty love affairs. Of course, except for those hopeless love brains. Extra Chapter 1. At a charity auction, I ran into Willow's eldest sister, Alicia. She had lived abroad for many years before the Liu family's decline. Alicia was considered the epitome of an elite socialite. Her maiden family was prestigious, and her husband's family held great power. But after the fall of the Liu family, Alicia had no choice but to return to the country. Her cheeks were sunken, the dark circles under her eyes impossible to conceal. At only 35 or 36, the corners of her eyes were already etched with fine lines. It seemed she had suffered greatly over the past year. Now the Liu Corporation was barely surviving, with fewer than 100 employees. Even so, it had only lasted this long thanks to Alicia. Perhaps my stare was too blatant, for Alicia turned to look at me. At the moment our eyes met, I saw her hand clench tightly. Suddenly interested, I handed my auction paddle to Anna and had the attendant clear a seat next to her. When I deliberately sat down beside her, Alicia's gaze turned vicious. I must have been the last person she wanted to see. Beyond the fact that I was the one who had crushed the Liu family, the mere difference in our current statuses was enough to make her bitter for a lifetime. I sat down slowly, smiling as I asked, "Big sister, how have you been lately?" Her voice was low and seething with anger. She snapped, "Don't call me sister." Chin raised, head tilted away. She refused to look at me, so haughty, so self-righteous. The Liu family members were always like this, unable to see things clearly. I chuckled. "You're right. I shouldn't call you sister anymore. Your current status," I looked her up and down, then gave a faint smile, "isn't worthy," she shouted. "Even in my downfall, I am still the daughter-in-law of the Sun family." Alicia could no longer restrain her temper. She stood up and pointed at me, exploding with rage. I glanced at her husband, Sun Sherbin. His eyes were dark and gloomy. Unbothered, I only smiled and returned to my seat, leaving Alicia standing there alone, the center of unwanted attention. To cut the weeds, you must pull out the roots. Alicia couldn't save the Liu family, and I would never allow her to. Our exchange was nothing but a minor interlude. I kept raising my paddle, bidding on a jade plaque, and finally bought it for tens of millions. The next day, the media was once again filled with reports of me spending extravagantly for Anna, with countless voices praising our so-called love story. I was speechless. It reminded me of the time Willow had chartered a plane to support Makoto. Back then, they too were shining, praised as if their romance was epic and tragic. Suddenly, I found it all meaningless. I dialed Anna's number. I said, "From now on, don't contact me again." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, before it finally dissolved into one sentence. "I want to be the lead actress in director Mu's new film." Extra Chapter 2. On the day Liu Corporation officially announced its bankruptcy, my Rolls-Royce with the 58 license plate was parked right in front of their office. The once grand enterprise had shrunk and shrunk, until in the end it occupied nothing more than a small storefront. Inside were Willow and Makoto. They both looked utterly defeated. The former rich heiress and the once famous celebrity. Now reduced to mediocrity, it carried a faint trace of tragedy. But all I wanted to do was laugh. Laugh at the humiliation I once endured. Laugh at how Willow squandered a winning hand. Laugh at how being love-brained was more poisonous than drugs. I am a man who always avenges insults. Whatever pain others inflict on me, I will pay back 100-fold sooner or later. The driver opened the car door for me. Standing under the sunlight, I almost felt out of place. Pushing open the glass door, Willow noticed me first. She was wearing a white silk blouse and a black skirt. Her tanned skin and dimmed features were utterly bland. Makoto looked a bit better in his shirt and slacks, neat and proper. But I'd heard he had long since quit acting. To redeem Willow, he had abandoned everything, even handed over all his savings to her, marked as an unconditional gift. The man who once insisted he was a piece of gold back on the cruise ship was now a meek, submissive wreck. When Makoto saw me, his chest puffed up with false bravado again. He barked, "What the fuck are you doing here?" I smiled and looked at Willow. For some reason, she instinctively took 2 steps toward me, pitiful and disgusting as she called out, "Gio." I rubbed my arm, goosebumps rising, and took 2 steps back in distaste. Willow, oblivious to the mood, stepped forward again. "Gio, I saw the news, you and Anna broke up." I was dumbfounded. Was this woman possessed by a ghost? Hearing that, Makoto lost all pretense. He grabbed Willow's arm roughly, yanking so hard that her cheap white blouse tore open on the spot. I was speechless. Makoto cursed furiously. "What the fuck do you mean by that? Trying to rekindle things with him? Ha! Have you even looked at yourself lately?" "Well said." Through gritted teeth, he shouted. "I've given you everything these past 2 years, working myself half to death, grinding day and night, and you bitch, kept stalling, refusing to marry me. Don't think I don't know, you and your mother have been scheming to hook a richer man all along." Makoto's brute force was overwhelming. In no time, Willow's clothes were ripped to shreds. In front of everyone, Willow's face turned bright red. She flailed, trying to cover herself, but how could she possibly resist Makoto's frenzy? Within moments, only scraps of cloth hung loosely on her body, barely concealing anything. Finally, just as Makoto lost all control, Willow raised her hand and slapped him hard across the face. Smack! Her hair in disarray, she clamped her hands around his throat, shouting, "If not for you, would I have ended up like this, you bastard?" I was stunned. Were these still the same 2 who once claimed they'd risk everything for love? Quietly, I slipped out of that pathetic little company and got back into my car. I even did them the favor of calling the police. Before coming, I had imagined myself proudly declaring to Willow, all the wealth built up over generations, decades of cultivation, gone. "Willow, you've lost everything, clean and bare." But seeing this scene now, I thought, forget it, that would be redundant.